Hello, my name is Ryan Vervacki and I'm the Manager of Principal Architects at Vertana. Today we are going to go over a short video on capacity workload analysis. The purpose of this video will be to show you how to use VirtualWisdom reports and analytics to help you identify storage capacity or utilization concerns and the source of the infrastructure that is driving those workloads. The integrations we will use in this video are as follows: switch integration, fiber channel hardware integration, VMware integration, which will be referenced in the analytics. The services report we will use is the VI Fiber Channel Utilization Report, and the analytics that will be used are as follows: Event Advisor and Trend Matcher. Why investigate capacity events? Capacity or high utilization events can lead to overall poor performance for applications or many applications depending on the impact. Overutilized storage or HVA ports can potentially result in buffer credit starvation impacts across the environment. Capacity events that cause credit starvation can lead to long-running scheduled jobs or long-running tasks for applications. When at or near capacity, failing hardware could potentially have a more significant impact across the environment. To investigate capacity events, we will use VirtualWisdom now to do a demonstration. From within the VirtualWisdom interface, you will want to click on the Reports tab on the left-hand side. This will take you to the reporting section, and from within here, I went ahead and typed in a search for utilization. And the VI Fiber Channel Utilization report that we referenced in the presentation is going to be located underneath the workload balancing. When we go underneath this utilization report, what this report will show us is utilization from the perspective of the application, the utilization across storage arrays. It will then get into the utilization across the HVAs for the host ports. It will also get into the storage port breakdown of which storage ports are driving read and write workload, and it'll also take you through the rest of the infrastructure as in ISLs and port channels. For the sake of this presentation, we're going to go down and look at the storage port utilization to attempt to identify a utilization event. Within this report, I'm looking at read utilization on storage ports and write utilization on storage ports. And based on the data in this chart, you're going to see that we are seeing a frequent reoccurring utilization event across a number of storage ports. And if I highlight those ports, you will see that it is the pure storage ports that are hitting a little over 96%, almost 97%, at times slightly over 98%. The event lasts for approximately from 4 a.m. in this instance to approximately 4:55, so about an hour time frame. We're seeing a capacity-related event across 4 storage ports. To understand who is driving these workloads, what we want to do is take this base trend and compare it to the utilization report slightly above it for the HVA ports. And you'll immediately notice that we see HVA ports that have the same capacity trend as the storage ports. If I hover above it, it's going to pop up and show me that the 2 HVA ports, HVA2 and HVA3 for ESX05, are hitting 100% capacity and match the exact trend of the workload saturation events on the storage ports in the chart directly below me. This is one way to quickly identify who is driving the workload to storage ports within your infrastructure. In larger environments, it becomes a little more cumbersome because in this report, we're showing you the top 10 devices for storage ports and HVA ports. But if the device driving the workload does not appear in the top 10, you can use what are known as analytics within the VirtualWisdom platform, and I'm going to demonstrate that now. Going into the analytics section on the left-hand side of the screen, you're going to see analytics for Event Advisor and analytics for Trend Matcher. Event Advisor will let you go out and look for particular events in the environment around whatever it is you want to look for. Trend Matcher will allow you to take those trends that you've identified and then do pattern matches to see what might be potentially driving those patterns. So in this instance, I'm going to go ahead and click on Run New for Event Advisor to use Event Advisor to find the workload event on my storage port versus using my reports that I previously showed you. So if I do Run New, I'm going to go ahead and let it look at the last week, which is already set up here in the time frame. So you want to set your time frame appropriately. I'm going to go ahead and add in those storage ports as what I want to look for. So right here I have my storage port, and I know that we had a read utilization event on my storage port. So I'm going to do storage ports, read utilization, hit select, and if I hit OK, that is now going to populate it in my search. And if I hit run, it's going to go out and look across this time frame for storage ports that might have had some sort of read utilization event. And when it finishes its time searching for these type of events, what you'll see is a chart that appears at the bottom of the screen. It's going to break down the events that we have identified across the different storage port entities across the infrastructure. And what you'll instantly see is that we see the four pure storage ports that we identified in the previous report. On the top pure storage port, it's going to say there was 26 events, the worst severity of 1. Across our platform, the highest severity level is 1. And then it goes down from there. The total length of all 26 events was 225 minutes. The severity of the one single worst event was the highest of 1, which is the worst in our platform, and it lasted for 35 minutes. And if you click on that particular event, it will take you into this event and it'll show you the trend. And here you go. We see that we were hitting around 0% capacity, and all of a sudden on this particular event, which was on Sunday, March 29th at 5:30 a.m., we jumped up to 100% capacity. We also saw another event on March 29th around 7:45 a.m. following a similar type of behavior. From here, you can jump to trend match, which will port the information over into our trend match analytic and allow you to do analysis around that analytic. For purposes of this demonstration, I have already pre-populated this over into our trend matcher analytic, which would, if I click on this, would take it over and pre-populate for you and show you what you can run. For purpose of this investigation, I'm going to go ahead and show you a pre-run one to save a little bit of time. So if I go back over to my analytics and I say OK, it's going to take me to my main screen. Under my trend matcher, I already have the save analytic output for the trend matcher screen I just showed you. I'll go under my outputs and you'll see here the one that I have saved, which is going to be trend matcher capacity example. And if I click on that, it's going to take me into the example of trend matcher for that particular event. And we'll go through the configuration of this trend matcher output and the results here as soon as this populates. So let me scroll up to the top while this is loading. So what you can see is we did a trend match. This is the trend matcher example. It's looking at storage ports, the pure port that we had highlighted, and the reutilization event. When I told it to jump over to trend matcher using that shortcut I previously showed you, it populated the trend we were looking at down below. And then you have two options for analysis. You have a quick mode, which is going to be a faster search looking at larger scale features. It's not going to get as granular in the data analysis to match the trends and those type of things, and it'll allow you to do a quicker search. If you want to get a more accurate search and result, you want to use the robust mode, which is a more comprehensive search that will take a little bit longer to run. It uses more granular data and data points to come up with a more accurate match. It's going to use this trend, and I said use robust mode. And down below you have the following options. You can search all connected entities with conversations, which is going to search basically everything that's connected and every conversation. We have a targeted one, which is called bandwidth consumer device, which you can see that I have selected, and that is one that I chose to run in this analytic. You can also run search all connected entities, but don't get all the way down to the conversation layer. That will provide much faster results. You can do a targeted situation where you tell it specifically which entity and metrics to look for. And then you can also do an old legacy search, which will search everything that we see across the infrastructure for anything that matches this pattern match. We selected, again, as I said, bandwidth consumer device. And if I go down a little bit further, it's going to show you what it found. This left side is going to be your topology. The right side is going to be the findings on what it pattern matched. And what you'll instantly see is the percentage of correlation on the top right of each of these sections. And you can see that that same ESX host, ESX05, that we found on the previous reporting portion of this video, found a pattern match of 99.89% correlation. It matched two distinct metrics, one which is our switch metric, which is read utilization, one that is our hardware-based metric, which is read payload rate. And if I expand these out, you'll see the blue is going to be the pattern of the workload from the ESX05 host. The green is going to be the pattern match of the base trend that we set, which was on the pure storage port, which is at 98% utilization. And you can see that the workload of the HVA for that ESX host pattern matches exactly the workload pattern of the storage port in question. If I shrink that down, I can expand the hardware-based metric. The hardware-based metric will show you from using our hardware probe and using more granular data, we were able to also pattern match from the hardware probe read payload rate, which is going to look at the total throughput in megabytes per second versus a utilization percentage. And you can see that we're pushing about 1600 megabytes per second. Let me collapse that one. What you'll also get when, instead of using some of the reporting features and having to do some custom level reports and stuff to get to the data you want or jumping between multiple reports, since this was an ESX server and we told it to look at a bandwidth consumer, it also went out and used our VMware based metrics to find out if there was any pattern matches on our VM metrics. And what it found was an ESX VM called ETLDB02, which had total disk read requests 99.89% pattern match and disk read rate. So if I expand the disk read rate, you're going to see that the VM that drove the workload is that ETLDB02. So not only did we find a pattern match on the utilization event on our storage ports, we found which physical host it was coming from, and we also found which VM was pushing that workload. If I look over on the left side, you're going to see this is that ESX05 host in my pattern. I can see that it's a 16 gig host and it's talking to 8 gig storage ports. So this is a 16 gig host talking to slower speed storage ports. So we have definitely, at least from a perspective of how the HBAs and storage ports are logged in the fabric, some level of speed mismatch across the infrastructure. That concludes the example of walking through our VirtualWisdom demo on how to use the reports and the analytics to kind of look at what is driving workloads and how to identify what is actually causing those workload patterns to change. So in summary, we were able to identify a storage port utilization event. We were able to review the services utilization report to help identify the host driving the workload to the impacted storage port. Alternatively, we ran the Event Advisor Analytic as another option for identifying utilization events within the infrastructure. We also demonstrated the Trend Matcher Analytic pattern matching to help identify the source of the utilization impact. Example of next steps to troubleshoot the situation we identified would be to review the workload on the ESX host or VM that was identified, validate that there are no speed mismatches driving the capacity event. We did identify that the host was 16 gig versus the storage port was 8 gig. And if necessary, potentially throttle the workload or spread the workload where possible to help alleviate the storage ports hitting max capacity. This concludes the video on capacity analysis, and thank you for watching.